to play. Now, when you think about the word play in English, you think of it as maybe something that's associated with playing baseball. That's not what's being talked about right here. The sort of play that is being talked about in this passage is a word that is used for wild, unrestrained activity. And so, after they had their festival, after they had their matsuri, they rose up to play. And that's a word that's often associated with crazy dancing and sex. And that would be very, very natural for someone in Canaan, where sex is a part of worship. And so it's possible here that there are more commandments being broken than just the first two. Certainly what we're looking at is a total, absolute failure to obey God's commandments. They had heard the commandments with their ears, and they said that they would follow the commandments, and no sooner do they get these words out of their mouth than they start to break the commandments. And that wasn't the end of it. Idolatry is something that would plague Israel for the rest of its existence. When you look at the time of the judges, the people would turn again and again to the idols. And even when the greatest kings were in power, even when David and Solomon were in power, these kings were not able to abolish idolatry completely from the hearts of their people. And things got even worse after Solomon died. After Solomon died, Rehoboam was on the throne of Israel. He had just taken over power in Israel, and it was a tenuous moment. People didn't know if the kingdom was going to stay united. And Rehoboam acted very unwisely. And the result of his unwise act was that the kingdom split into two parts. One part of the kingdom would be the two tribes that would stay with Rehoboam. So there were two tribes that stayed with Rehoboam. But the other 10 tribes went with another king whose name was Jeroboam. So, Jeroboam decided that he wanted to make sure that his people would stay with him. He wanted to make sure that this split that Rehoboam had begun was going to be a permanent split. And there was just one little problem that he had, making sure that the split would stay complete. And this is the problem. The religion of Israel was set up in such a way as to keep everyone together. In order to worship properly, you had to go to Jerusalem at least once a year. And so the situation that Jeroboam is dealing with is he's in this section without Jerusalem, and his people think that they need to go to Jerusalem into Rehoboam's little part in order to worship. And so what Jeroboam decides to do is to make sure that the split is permanent by reintroducing a form of idolatry. Jeroboam said, if this people go up to offer sacrifices in the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem, then the heart of this people would turn to their Lord. So to Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So the king took counsel, and he made 2 calves of gold. And he said to the people, you have gone up to Jerusalem long enough. Behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. 1 Kings chapter 12, verses 27 and 28. So here's what Jeroboam is doing. He's trying to make sure this split is going to be permanent. And so he's telling people, you don't need to bother going to Jerusalem. You don't need to go all that way. But what you have right here is everything that you need. And so he created these idols. He created these calves of gold in order to secure his kingdom. He was trying to make sure that people wouldn't go to Jerusalem to worship because he was worried that they might reunify themselves with the other king. And so in order to do that, he resurrects an old form of idolatry. He says, these are the cows. These cows are the same sorts of cows that you worshiped when you came up out of Egypt. And so, behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Bull worship isn't some strange new invention, but it's an old tradition. All you guys need to do is to remember the rich heritage that you have, and then bow down to these cows of gold. There's a lot that we can learn from this story. Idolatry can easily be disguised as the real religion when people don't know God's Word very well. In order to make people into idolaters, all you have to do is to take a few culturally acceptable wrong beliefs and then mix them in with Christianity, and a lot of people are going to follow after you. For example, think for a moment about the Mormons. The Mormons teach that there are many gods. You should know by now from looking at the first commandment that there is only one God. But the Mormons teach that there are many. But when the Mormons come to your house, they're not going to start out by saying, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. There are many gods." They're going to come to your house and they're going to talk with you about the benefits of having a good family life and how you could be a better mom or dad. They talk with you about something that is culturally appealing, something that will make you listen to them. And then, after they get you listening to them, then and only then will they give you other news about there being many gods. But in some situation where people don't understand the Bible, when they don't understand the Bible as they should, they don't read the Bible, then they'll fall for these sorts of things. And sooner or later, they will become idolaters. And there's another lesson that is very important for understanding the last part of verse 5 and the last part of verse 6. When you look at the history of idolatry in the nation of Israel, you need to realize that idolatry creates a legacy among a people. When the fathers are idolaters, chances are the young people will be idolaters as well. Idolatry isn't something that affects one generation and one generation only, but it tends to affect all of the generations that come after it. You know what happened to Jeroboam's land? Jeroboam led his people into the path of idolatry, and it wasn't very long after that before God brought destruction upon them. Complete and utter destruction. He wiped them out because their sin was so bad in his eyes. That's what idolatry does to a family. That's what idolatry does to a nation. Now, let's talk about the history of idolatry within some different cultures. The Totome have a very short legacy within the land of Okinawa. And as I talk with you about the ancestor worship and the Totome and Okinawa, I'm going to be dependent a lot on a book that was written by Kanhan Teruya. And in this book, Teruya Sensei says that worship of Totome began underneath King Shoshin about 534 years ago. And this king built a shrine for his father, King Sho-in. And then a little bit after that, 480 years ago, investigation of Totome began under the Ryukyu Kingdom's Minister of Agriculture, Ihai Aratame. They started to inspect, they started to come into your house and find out whether or not you had Totome as you should. And then, 413 years ago, all of this was furthered when Toyotomi Hideyoshi was in control. Toyotomi Hideyoshi wanted ancestor worship to be furthered in order to prevent the spread